I mean, some of the things I'm wrestling through, and if these are just dumb questions and the movie answered them, then please let me know. But I guess, like, in simplest terms, this person who was connected to the serial killings all along because she met the serial killer and, you know, he took her mom under, you know, all that stuff. The fact that she grew up to become the FBI agent working the case in the first place.
Uh-huh.
Is that, like, what is that?
I think that's just one of those God works in mysterious ways type things that fate brought them to that moment, because that's where, but listen, but as a religious, not as much anymore, but as with a religious background and kind of knowing how Satan and God works, and that's something that I think your brain has to connect in a less grounded way and a more, this was where she was meant to be in this moment and time. Because, I mean, obviously this is not something that would have happened if she wasn't an FBI agent. He would have found a different way to get her there. And so I think wherever she was in her life, he would have gotten to her. But to tie that in this specific way, but then you also don't have a movie if that doesn't happen. So we're just kind of...
That's true.
We're just, you know what I mean? Like, we're just kind of like unnecessarily trying to unravel this whole thing, if that makes sense.
Almost spoiled another TV show. But there's something to be said that her childhood, she locked away because of, you know, the trauma and things like that. But I'm assuming that that's what prevented her from exposing all the details to Blair Underwood. Because he kind of had to dig out, like, how'd you know about this? How'd you work out this? Like, that kind of stuff. And I knew that she was hiding something. I'm not sure if she even knew that she was hiding it in that moment, or like knew exactly why she was withholding information. But
I don't think she did, because I think there's one point when they're going on that big montage where she's doing the big exposition scene. She says something about we like somehow made you forget, or you forgot, or you tucked that away and don't remember it. Something about her not being able to recall those things, like she saw it, but she didn't actually see it. And so she just has no memory of it. And so that was part of that big exposition.
And I'm 100% okay with that. My main issue is just how we unraveled it in the moment. But
sure.
And I don't know how I feel about her mom doing it the whole time. It's like, yeah, we got inklings that she was kind of off for a rock or two, but it was kind of like, those were the scenes that were frustrating just because I thought all of their conversations were weird, which that goes back to like the weird for the sake of being weird argument. There is obviously an explanation and a justification, so it's like, I also didn't like the explanation. So that's why I was just like never on board with the mom thing. There were definitely intense scenes. Pretty much any time a gun was drawn, I thought it was a good scene. Very intense moments for sure. But I would be more on board with your God works in mysterious ways theory if the ending wasn't so tragic. And I'm not saying it needed to be kitty cats and cotton candy by the end. Certainly not with this type of movie. But if the movie was just any less tragic, I would agree with that theory.
Well, then you could say the devil works in mysterious ways as well, because maybe the devil brought her to that moment in time, or at least took her on that career path and allowed her to end up. But I think wherever she would have been, she could have been working at McDonald's, and he would have, drove in his car to the drive-thru and cast a spell on her. Wherever she would have been, I think he would have found her, and we would have gotten a different.
Well, I guess I just inferred with that theory. I inferred that God also prevails. I didn't go as religious as you did. Like, obviously, it's about satanic shit. Like, of course, on paper, it's there, but I didn't take it existentially, I guess, or metaphorically or anything. I took it for what it was. But
well, and that's what's so crazy about this movie is it's so grounded, but then you have the imagery, and I think that the imagery of the devil picks up more and more. I just distinctly recall that moment in the third act where she's knocking on the door and she goes in and you see the shadowed image of Satan at the door. And that was really cool. But it's like, no, man, this is bringing in all that stuff. This is full Conjuring. Now, we went full Conjuring at this point, and that's what this marriage of a procedural serial killer movie mixed with a character study, mixed with a demonic aspect, is something I've never really seen before. And so that's cool. That's really cool. And I like the fact that they brought it in. Maybe it didn't fully work, but I like the fact that they tried to bring that in and, essentially mind control at the end with all of the families that were killed. They were being mind controlled by the demon in this doll. And so that's again something that they explained to us so well. I knew exactly what was going on in that final moment.
Oh, for sure. And like I said, if this movie was repackaged, I would have been, my stomach would have been churning and I would have been throwing up in the floor. Like those intense moments in the living room at the end. But yeah, I just felt like the air had left the room because of that exposition dump right before, and we were kind of getting more in that moment, and I'm like, I want to feel the scene. Like it was preventing me. And even then too, like I was thinking about how just like annoyed I was when she met Blair Underwood's family to begin with, because she took him home after they had been drinking, and he's just like, come in, meet my family, even though it was like midnight. And then it's like, so we're also going to take the time to let that little girl who's just awake and out past her bedtime just chill by herself with Maika Monroe. And it's just like, and we're going to see Maika Monroe be weird and awkward or whatever. It's like, those are the types of things that I don't like in movies when it's just like weird for no reason. And so it's like,
but think about it too. That moment, in my opinion, now this may not be how it went down, but in my opinion, they already had the doll. And so when he says, come in here, it's probably not him saying, come in here. It's probably that demon inside of him saying, come in here and meet my daughter and meet my family. So the idea of her sitting on the bed with that little girl, as a parent, I'm like, I wouldn't let a stranger into my daughter's room, but they may not have been in their right minds in that moment. Just normal enough to where we didn't see anything going on as an audience, but I think they've had the doll for quite a while. And so those weird things that we get in the beginning, now we can look back on those and say, oh, that's why it was weird, because there was a demonic doll in the house. So I think there was some sort of underlying spirit kind of compelling that moment to happen, if that
I just didn't pick up on that because I'm an idiot.
No, you're not.
Like that didn't even occur to me, to be honest. But I don't know if I just like missed something in the explanation. But I also just kind of, I guess I hadn't even like stopped to consider how much time had passed throughout the movie. I mean, I remember in the scene distinctly, she asked, "Can what's her face come to my birthday party?" Which I even thought was weird in the moment, but also kids can just be like that and it's fine. But
sure.
So yeah, I guess I hadn't even. Do you know off the top of your head how much time passed?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, it doesn't feel like a lot
within
of time
a month,
passed,
right?
But
within a month.
Yeah, it had to be fairly
Because
quick.
of
Like
the
it had to be at
triangle.
least a. Yes. So yeah, I feel it, but that's what I meant. In the non-spoiler part is all of those weird things we got in the first half. Those just, she's weird, sitting on the bed with a little girl, that's weird. Like all of those things, they give an explanation for in the third act. They do mostly a good job of it. And so that's why I'm, the more I think about how it connects from act 1 to act 3, I'm like, oh, well, that's why I didn't feel anything for these weirdos.
Fair enough. I mean, it's definitely helpful. I guess I just hadn't considered it because my mind has been elsewhere. But
Sure.
Everybody else is like, duh.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they didn't have the doll, and maybe they weren't.
That's
being
what I want to believe.
weird.
That makes almost the entire movie make sense. But yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, just again, I'm not pissed. Just didn't vibe with it. That's really it.
By the way, the opening where the guy gets shot, I thought that was awesome. That's the brutality I think I was looking for throughout this entire movie, which we ultimately didn't get because it goes in a different direction, but I just thought it looked phenomenal. This is the type of serial killer look that I prefer, and it's so cinematic, man. And the aspect ratio change from past to present, how they went from that to that, and then they went back to that later on in the movie, and I just thought that was really, really cool, man. It had, aesthetic wise, atmosphere wise, it had all of the makings visually to be like a classic all timer. It's not that, but just the way it looks, it had that formula. This movie doesn't need ending explained. Longlegs. Let's explain what. No, it doesn't really need to be explained. And you may ask, well, what happens after the credits? I don't know. Don't ask me that question. I don't know what happens.
An ending explained video would just be the scene that we got in the movie. Like that explains. Yeah. It's like
the exposition scene.
It would be plagiarism if we did it. So
you're exactly right.
All right. Well, that does it. I think it's interesting, and I am curious to hear what our viewers think on YouTube.